And
Let
we
me
would like
get
to
my screen
welcome
set up.
Amy Stephens again to present and share the wealth of her knowledge with us all. So, to ask as many questions as you have and can. There's no such thing as a, I guess some people, I guess, think of it as a dumb question. There's no such thing. Usually, a dumb question is a question that you don't ask. You have to ask things. Whatever it is that you have in your mind, even just speaking out loud is significantly welcome because it can lead to other thoughts or other questions or ideas. Anyway, thank you so much, Amy. Take over.
Great. So I'm going to get started. So can you guys see my screen? My presentation?
Yes.
You could see it. Okay, good. Okay, so I'm going to get started. And first, thank you so much for, inviting me to talk to your group. I really love working with you guys, and I love all of your questions. And like Coach said, there are never bad questions. And if you're not comfortable asking in front of other people, email me after or text me afterwards. I'm happy to answer if I can. Also, right before I got on this call, I had been interviewed earlier this week to do New York Times. They asked me to do the running section as a nutrition expert, and the article just came out. So when we're done with this call, you guys can take a look at, if you get the running New York Times article, you'll see all my answers. It's so exciting.
Congrats. That's exciting indeed.
So, all right, so let's get started. Okay, so we're talking on marathon nutrition. Here are the topics that I'm going to be going over. And also just a little bit about me, for some of you who don't know. I work with professional athletes that are mostly mid-distance, but we have some marathoners, and they are really with the goal of trying to make the Olympic team. So some of them have run in the Olympics or qualified. I've gone with them to the Olympic trials. So they're mid-distance, so that's like 800 meters, 1,500 meters, a 5K and marathon. And I also work a lot with amateur athletes. And anyone who's interested in running and running faster, I'm happy to help. So, okay, so the topics are to get back on track with your eating plan, what to eat before a long run, and talking about the different distances, what constitutes a long run, how to fuel a marathon, best carbs to choose for a marathon, recovery foods, hydration, and then I had a couple other topics if we have time. And I'm going to kind of peek at my watch as we kind of move forward. So food is important. And over the years, we're learning more about how food impacts our performance. It also helps with injury prevention. And the more studies we can find on food, they have revealed they help with energy production, your hormones, recovery, your body composition, influences all of these different aspects, mood, inflammation. And more recently, we're finding, and what's most important, I think, for athletes is how it impacts your gut flora. Having your diet and the foods that you eat actually influence the types of flora that is found in your gut. Also influences sleep. So let's start with it's, the beginning of the year, it's the dead of winter, getting back on track with your diet. So what are some, quick tips that we can kind of just go over? As long as 90% of your diet is filled with nutrient-dense foods, then 10% can be less nutritious. And I feel like that's important for me to start with that because people think you need to be on a diet and it has to be strict and you can't eat the foods that you love. But I actually think you need those foods in your diet. We're not talking about it taking up half of your calories, but if you love a glass of wine from time to time, that's fine. If you want 6, then maybe that's too much and it'll start to impact your recovery and it'll impact your performance. But I think if you allow for these favorite foods in your diet, you will not miss them, you will not think about them, and you will feel like you can eat healthier foods without feeling restricted. Fill your diet with fresh fruits, vegetables, lean proteins, whole grains, healthy fats, and limit alcohol. That is how I would define a healthy diet. Stock your pantry. That's probably one of the most helpful things people hear, especially on the weekend, going into the week. You're going to eat better if those foods are in your kitchen. If they're not and you have to go trekking out or find them, it's easier to stop and grab, some fast food or grab things that are from a restaurant that are not as healthy. And it's, just much easier if you have those foods on hand. A couple other things that I think are really helpful to start with are basic nutrients. Carbs, that is your main source of energy. As a runner, your body uses carbs for energy. There are so many different types of diet plans that eliminate or restrict or cut out carbs. That behavior and that type of terminology does not belong to a runner. Runners need carbohydrates, but in a balanced way, and choosing some good ones, which is what I'll go over. Protein is also critical, helps with muscle repair, helps boost your immune system, although it's not a great source of energy. So tons and tons of protein, like from protein drinks and eating lots of meats, is fine, but it's not giving you energy for your runs. Fats are important. Also can be used to fuel a longer, like a slow run or just like a longer run. That would be like a good fuel source. So let's go right into meal timing. The most important thing is to practice whatever you're going to do before race day. So use these days, like your track workout days or your long run days, as opportunities to try out different fueling strategies. Write them down, see what worked and see what didn't work. So time foods so that they are fully digested when you start running. Takes about an hour to 2 hours to digest a meal. So then those nutrients are all available to you to use when you're running. Carbs from bread and fruit give you quick energy. Protein and fats are slower and stay in your gut longer. So eating bacon with your breakfast is going to take longer to digest and is going to probably cause some GI issues. Or having a protein shake, probably not the best option if you're going for a track workout. So this is a new slide I created. I do lots of talks on marathon nutrition. Hopefully this is clear, and I tried to kind of outline it as best I can. What to eat before a morning run. So time your foods to maximize your energy. So let's say your morning run is at around 8. If you walk it back a couple hours, 1 to 2 hours before, those are some food options that I've listed on the bottom left. Toast with banana and some honey, peanut butter. Dried fruit is great. Waffle with jelly, granola bar, oatmeal made with water. These are all great. And then as you get closer to your start time, you need faster digestible carbs. And those are things like these honey stinger waffles. I like those just because they taste pretty good to me. There's lots of other options. But you don't want a kind bar at that time. It's too close to the start and you have too much protein in your stomach. You need something that's much more like just pure carb. Half of a banana. You don't want to fill up on too much. Some dates or applesauce, all carb, because it'll get digested quicker. And then right at the start of your workout, you can sip some Gatorade, some hydration beverage, or any other kind of carbohydrate beverage. Sips, you don't need to guzzle it. Also, you don't want to load your stomach up or your gut because you're asking it to then do a workout and use your muscles, and you're asking it to digest food. So it's going to prioritize the workout and stop digesting at that point. And this is a night workout. So on your evening workouts, I can't remember if you guys started at 6 or 7. I think it was 6 o'clock. So is that right?
Mm-hmm. 6.
So if you during a work day, this is what it would look like. You could just have a nice big lunch, like around 12 to 2. So a lot of times I've been working with athletes where they work through lunch and they don't stop. And then they're like starving and they eat a huge amount of food and then get a stomachache, get their workouts at night. So on those track days, prioritize, like set an alarm, make sure you get a good lunch, or you can have a snack and make sure it's something that's like half of your lunch, a small meal or a snack size amount of food. You don't want too much food in your stomach as you're heading out the door to go to a track workout. You're not going to have a good experience. And if you're kind of carving that time out of your day, let's maximize that. Let's make sure that you get to the start line there and have a great workout. And if you're not sure and you're feeling a little hunger, grab some gels or gummies, some Gatorade, just a little bit of energy stuff. And then after your workout, you can focus on a healthier meal.
Sorry, Amy,
Yeah.
really quickly.
Yeah.
lunch before the evening track workout, what time do you recommend that lunch be?
So like,
I'm assuming like maybe 3-4 hours before.
yeah, so like 12, I would say 12 to 2 is a lunch. And then if you're feeling like you need a little something extra, so that's 12 to 2, then like 3 or 4, like have a piece of fruit and maybe some nuts, or a Kind bar, or a piece of toast with peanut butter. You could do that at like 3 o'clock. So that's 3 solid hours. You're not hungry. Like you're going to clear that food. It's not hanging out in your stomach. And if you're still hungry before you head out or go to your track workout, just go for some simple stuff. You could even do some dried fruit as it gets a little closer.
Perfect. Thank you.
Does that make sense?
Yep. Thank you.
And you're always better erring on the side of less food and then taking a gummy or goos or something. You're always better off being a tiny bit hungry, because once you start running, especially if it's a workout, your adrenaline kicks in and starts releasing sugar into your bloodstream. So you're not going to feel hunger. You're going to be like, I want this workout to end. I need to go faster so I can get through it. Okay, so here's some other ideas, kind of reiterating what I just said, but giving it more of a carbohydrate amount. Some people like this information. Some people think it's too much. I'm just offering it. So if your run is 30 to 90 minutes, you want to eat like a few hours before, and up to an hour and a half or like 90 minutes, you don't need food. You really don't. And everyone's slightly different. If you feel tired or exhausted, you can add some food in like before the run. That's perfectly fine. But your body has enough energy for an hour and a half. And if you're running longer than that, then you're going to need something. Like today I ran 11 miles. I needed to bring a goo, and I knew I did. Or I knew the goo might freeze. So like I ate a huge breakfast earlier on, and that was enough. But I've practiced that. Everyone is different. So practice what feels best to you. Like I said, if it's over an hour and a half, you have to take carb. And that is, everyone's, it's not exact for every single person, but generally, if your body only can hold on to enough for an hour and a half. If you're running really hard, like during a race, you might need it a little earlier on. Maybe it's like hour 10. But that is something that you're going to practice maybe during a long tempo. That's a really good time to practice your fueling. Here's some other ideas. I try to make as many visuals as I can and showing it in so many different ways. So here's some pre-workout foods. This is an hour to 2 hours. Banana, oatmeal, like a small bowl of oatmeal. And I would make that with water, probably not with milk, because then it takes too long. Toast with a little bit of peanut butter. Berries, dates are great. I've been using dates. I think those are really good. They're pretty sweet. You can have like 2 or 3 of them, and see how your body feels. Apple and peanut butter. Those are always great. Super easy. They're in your house. Like you don't have to prepare anything. So marathon day. So you've gotten through your training. So the goal for marathon day is you want to race the last 10K with fuel in the tank. So it's almost like you want to train or like fuel up to 20 miles and then, maybe take 1 goo if needed in that last 10K. Eat carbs at breakfast to top off your glycogen on race day. So you're going to do that, like the same breakfast that you're having. If you're traveling, which it sounds like a lot of you guys are, if you're going to Virginia, and Virginia doesn't have great bagels. If that's your breakfast, you're going to have to bring some bagels with you. Have the foods in your hotel room or wherever you're staying that you normally eat. When I did the Philly Marathon, I went with a couple girlfriends who we've been training together. We literally laid out all of our food on the counter. It was a massive amount of food, but it's what we all normally eat. So, it's really important to you've done all the training, don't let the food kind of fall on the wayside. Stay hydrated is another really important thing. If you travel, you're more likely to get dehydrated. And I really think hydration is the cause of GI issues. It's not necessarily what you're eating. I think that's part of it, but it's being dehydrated. Your body is kind of more prone to having GI issues no matter what you eat. And then eat carbs during a run early and often to preserve your glycogen and prevent hitting the wall. Here's another way to kind of go through race day. So the week of the race the goal is to top off your glycogen stores with lots of carbs, like low fiber foods, like potatoes, pasta, rice, fruit. Just incorporate them into your balanced meals. So you're still eating like grilled chicken or turkey burgers, or if you're a vegetarian, you're having lots of tofu along with these types of foods. And you can have veggies, just kind of taper them as the week goes on. If your race is on Saturday or Sunday, you maybe ease up on the beans and the fibrous foods by like Friday or Thursday or Friday. Day before the race, topping off glycogen stores. And again, eating foods that you've had before. And that is the biggest challenge is when you travel. My athletes, when we traveled to Eugene, Oregon for the trials, thankfully we had a house and I just made foods that we normally eat, very basic foods, because I knew that their bodies would be able to tolerate it. And it's ironic because you eat so well and you train throughout the, a periodization, but then you travel and you have all these different foods that you're exposed to. So try and eat as similar as you can. And again, here's the breakfast idea: high carb meal 3 to 4 hours before. I estimate around 100 grams of carb, but you could do a little more or a little less. And that would look like an oatmeal with some banana, honey, peanut butter. That's, getting close to 100, or bagel with peanut butter. If you have an upset stomach or you have some GI issues, a bowl of rice. That is a perfectly fine pre-race food. It goes down well. It's a binding food. And then during the race, here's, this is a general plan. Like you'd start with this and then kind of modify it based on how your body feels. 15 minutes before, you could take a GU and then have some water. This energy will be available when you start running because it takes about 15 minutes for those GUs to kick in. And then target around 30 to 60 grams of carb per hour from gels and Gatorade, or, if you're not doing Gatorade, then it's just coming from your gels. And I'll get a little bit more into that as we go forward. And I'm just keeping track of the time.
Z
Hydrate. Yeah.
Go ahead, Z.
So this might be kind of self-explanatory, but I realize maybe it's a mistake that I'm making. So in general, I don't get enough protein, so I was trying to balance it throughout the day. So can you tell me, because I'm seeing that you're mentioning a lot when people eat oatmeal, that you do with water and milk, and I generally don't do dairy, but in the last few months I incorporated yogurt with like a little bit of granola before breakfast. Do you think that's a bad idea because the protein in the yogurt before a run? I'm just asking.
Yeah, I mean,
okay sometimes, so.
Yeah, so again, it's like, I think, before like a longer slow run, maybe you'd be okay, but like, generally, like you don't want that much protein, like a dairy, before you go out and run, because it's going to stay in you a little longer. Like that might be great after the run. Sorry if my dogs might bark. Hopefully they don't. So, that would be good. Yeah, like after a run, that's like a perfect recovery.
So not before, okay, because I was trying to space out my protein throughout the day, and I didn't realize that might be harming me in a way. So just because.
Yeah, and it's not like bad, but I would say that's better for recovery.
Okay.
Like dairy's great for recovery.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Sure. And then here's another way to look at it. Carbs and fluids during an endurance event, like a marathon. So if the event is under an hour and a half, that's if you're doing like a fast half marathon or any other distance, you don't really need much. If you wanted hydration, if it's a hot climate, like if you're down in Houston today, or I think it's tomorrow for the half, you could just do some fluids. And then, event duration, hour and a half to 3, again, it's that 30 to 60 grams of carb an hour. And that's something to practice. And what I learned, I don't know if you guys know Brendan Martin, he's an awesome marathoner. I was trying to change up my game with my GUs, and I didn't know how to do it or when. He's like, do it on your tempos and try and do it without water. See how your body feels. Like, see if you're able to do that. And like, in case you're at, in between aid stations, that you can get that down. So I did it, and like, I was fine. And it's kind of like, whatever you try, it just gives you confidence going forward into your race day. And you just repeat the exact same thing, whatever that is. So 30 to 60, try it. And the purpose of that is to preserve your glycogen. When your glycogen that's stored in your muscles is gone, then you hit the wall. So to preserve it, you take 30 to 60 per hour every hour. So you have to start it. You're going to feel great the first hour and you're like, I don't need anything, but you need to get it in. Maybe do one at like 45 minutes in, and then you start like a little bit more aggressively. It delays your fatigue. People who hit the wall often are going too fast and not taking enough. Or they're going faster than they trained, than their training pace. But you have a great coach that's going to tell you what pace you should be doing. So that's awesome. So fueling during a marathon, here are some other options. So I said 30 to 60 per hour. So here are just some ideas. Gels are 21 to 27. There's so many different options for gels. Again, I would just say whatever tastes good to you. Whatever your body tolerates, whatever you like, go for that. You don't want solid foods. You could do dates. I don't, I know someone who did those. I know someone who did pretzels. I didn't think that was ideal. I think they just probably needed some salt. Energy bars, you don't really need that. That would be like before the race. Chews are great. I've tried those. I've tried everything. Just see what you love. See what works. There's so many different options. If one thing is not working for you, ask around, see what other racers are doing, and try something different. So let's get into recovery foods. So the purpose of recovery foods and what this means is like the foods I'm showing right now is start eating within 30 minutes after a workout, because it stimulates your body to go from stress and exercise phase into recovery and growth. And that's what you want, especially if you're not 20. 20-year-olds can recover very quickly, much faster. And as we get older, it takes a little longer to recover. So if you're going to be doing long mileage or lots of mileage in the week and you need to recover for the next run, you want that to start faster. It also, within the first 30 minutes, your body can absorb more glycogen or more glucose. So you get the most benefit right after the run, and then it'll still continue for the next like 8 to 12 hours or maybe longer, depending on the run. You'll still absorb glycogen or glucose from your food, but it's going to be at a slower rate. So maximize that by eating right after. Here's some foods that I think are great. You want a combo of carb and protein. So these are just some foods that I'll recommend or I'll bring to track workouts. So eat something. You don't have to eat a whole peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Eat half. That's fine, as long as you get something in. And, being at the track, you're like kind of, you have to travel home and you're coming from work sometimes, just throw a couple things in your bag. The winter's a little different because like those Cliff Bars are going to be rock solid by the time your workout's over. So we might have to be a little more creative with that, but have something right after. Here's some great foods. People also ask me, like, what do I eat? What's a good meal to have after I run? So it also depends on how far you're going. If you're running like under an hour, you don't really need to change your diet that much. But if it's over an hour, you may find your appetite is increased, and it might be increased a few hours or even like up to like 8, 12 hours later. So it's important that you restock your glycogen stores with some great foods. So here's some great foods to put in. Someone asked me about anti-inflammatory foods, so I added this in. This is a great time to have these types of foods. Things like beet juice, tart cherry juice is great. They're anti-inflammatory, where there have been studies that compared someone who has arthritis to someone who does not, and they measured the improvement, and they gave them both tart cherry juice, and they found that from the consumption, it was even like, it wasn't even that much. I think it was like 3/4 of a cup, which is like 6 ounces. They felt a reduction in their symptoms, which is pretty awesome. So beet juice, tart cherry, but it doesn't mean more is better, just so you know, because those have they're very nutrient dense. Trader Joe's has a good beet juice. You don't need to drink the whole bottle every day. It's not going to make it anything better. So maybe like adding 3/4 of a cup into your day would be really good. Avocados are great, almonds, grapes, berries, green tea, fish, which is omega-3, is awesome to reduce inflammation. And by inflammation, I mean when you exercise, the whole purpose of exercise is to cause a disruption and cause inflammation in your muscles. And then afterwards you recover and your body looks to absorb all the nutrients that are around to get stronger for the next time. And that's called building up. So you want to have these foods, and like, fish or salmon is awesome because it'll prevent extra inflammation and you'll recover faster. Turmeric is also really great. You can use that in your foods. People take turmeric pills if you don't like the taste of it. But you don't need to use a ton. I think it's like a quarter teaspoon is actually what they've studied. Using olive oil and broccoli is great. I always say the meal is an opportunity to replace your nutrients. Use things like complex carbs, lean protein, veggies, fruits, and low-fat dairy. So hydration. This is a tough one because everyone has a different sweat rate and the weather changes so much here. We're not like on the equator where the weather is much more similar all the time, year round. So we have to adapt, and our bodies maybe sweat a little differently at different times of the year. So, a sweat test is really great if you're not sure if you're taking in too much or too little. And that's, I can go over that in a little more detail with you, but you're basically weighing yourself before you run and then subtracting any fluids that you take in, and then see the difference in your weight. And that is how much your body is sweating for a 1-hour exercise. And you could do that in the winter, and you could do it in the summer. Or if you're working out a lot indoors, like working out at the Armory a lot, you're still sweating. Even though it's not dripping on your face, you are still sweating. So again, you want to practice your hydration strategies. You don't want to do something different on race day or do something that your friend is doing. Everyone is completely different. I was at track the other day with my team, and Eric Holt sweats the most I've ever seen anyone sweat. And he's not dripping sweat. It's just coming out of, it's evaporating. But he has a high sweat rate. And so with sweat, you also lose electrolytes. So we have to make sure that he gets a lot of sodium to replace it because he'll get leg cramps. And so when to add electrolytes, again, that's something that you practice. Generally, if you're losing like a liter of sweat, which is like around 2.2 pounds, I believe, that's a lot. And, you would use like 500 to 1,000 milligrams of sodium, which is a good amount. I use salt pills. The pills have about 200 milligrams of sodium, which is not a lot. But I know that my body needs that. Also, Gatorade came out with these really cool sweat patches that you put on your arm, and you run for an hour, and then you can kind of measure how much your body is sweating, and it gives you an estimate on your electrolytes too. But it does not work in temperatures below 50. So I'm going to have to wait for it to be warmer, or if I go on vacation, which I'm not planning on doing, to try and measure my sweat rate. So race day plan, you're duplicating your long run. That is how you do your hydration. Nothing different. Just because there's aid stations every mile, it doesn't mean you should be taking fluids every mile if you have not done that. I was very lucky when I ran Philly. I had 2 friends that ran with me, and they got all the waters for me. But we followed the same exact plan, and they kind of helped regulate that. And we just duplicated what we had done on our long runs, which was great. So another really good way, a surefire way to know if you are hydrated individually, is your pee. Look at the color of your pee. It should be a pale yellow. If it's very dark, you'll know that that's too concentrated. So you need to drink a little more water. Or if you don't pee after a run, like you should be going to the bathroom like I'd say like 3 hours, 2 to 3 hours. And if you don't, then you're definitely not having enough fluid. So this is really important. Sleep and rest. As I said earlier, it has to do with your hormones. Sleep and rest are really the only way to reset your hormones. And all of this is impacted by food, by sleep, and by your hormone levels, like your ability to adapt to your training. So, the best thing to do is really do nothing. Let your body rest. It doesn't mean that you should sit around and not do your leg workouts or your strength. It means do that, but allow your body maybe at a certain time every day, like 10 o'clock at night, or set a good bedtime and turn off all your electronics. Make sure your body is getting a good night's sleep. And if you're not, then you need to look at that a little more further. Like, is there something else going on? Are you eating too late at night? Are you hungry? What is happening, and why is your sleep disrupted? It also helps your body digest foods. Like I was saying with the hormones, you have all these different hormones that are constantly fluctuating. It's like a symphony of hormones. So when one is up, one is down. So we want them to kind of reset and get re-regulated after a tough workout, so your body can kind of get back to a normal functioning level. So it'll help digest foods, so those foods can get used to build up your muscles and restore your glycogen. Also improves mood. So if you're having issues with your mood, it will definitely help improve that.
Amy, you mentioned eating at nighttime. What time do you recommend that, like, you eat your last meal before you go to bed? Like an hour before, 2 hours before?
So I would say like 2 to 4 hours before bedtime is your last meal. If you're hungry, you can have a small snack. So if we go back to the timing of how you digest food, it takes you around 2 hours for you to fully digest a meal. So if you're eating a dinner really late at night, let's say like 9 o'clock at night, 2 hours later, what are you doing? You're trying to sleep. So it can disrupt your sleep because your body's also still trying to digest food, and you have the maximum amount of sugar in your bloodstream. All the nutrients are fully available, and you're supposed to be using those nutrients and hunting for your food or using up that energy. Instead, you're going to sleep. So it's not as ideal. 2 to 4 hours. So try not to eat big meals late at night.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Did that answer your question?
Yep. Nope. That's perfect. Thank you.
Yep. And if you're hungry, like I said, grab something small, like a handful of something. Hopefully you eat a good balanced dinner that you're not starving at 9:30, 10 o'clock at night. You can have a snack, but not starving. Here's some balanced meals, just to give you some ideas. So again, focusing on the timing, eating often, every 3 to 4 hours. No big gaps of time between meals. I feel like I said this 3 times this week to athletes. They were not seeing strength improvements. They were not seeing, or they were trying to change their body composition, or their energy was low. They were not having lunch. They were having a breakfast, not eating anything during the day, and then having a gigantic dinner. So that is not how your body works. If you think of it like a car that's idling, you're always using fuel. Like your brain is using energy, even though you might not be running, the insides are recovering from the previous workout. So you want to constantly supply your body with energy. And it could be a small meal, like a lunch. If you're busy and you have a lot of meetings, it could be like hummus and carrots. Like that's a great meal. Or the yogurt with like fruit. That's a perfect meal if you have no time. Or a bar. A bar is totally fine. Just no skipping. And then, what happens also is your metabolism slows down because your body is smart. It wants to survive, and it's saying, well, I'm not getting any energy. I better conserve, slow down the metabolism. So you don't build as much muscle. Your heart rate slows down. Everything slows down until you get more fuel. So here are the ideas. These are just mixed meals. So the key here is that you're having some veggies, some protein, and some starch. And these are just some ideas. It's funny, I wrote tips for eating out, and I changed it because I'm like, who's eating out? But ordering in is another, foods that you don't cook. Those foods, if you're not cooking them, they'll tend to have the portions are too big and a lot of excess fat is added to them. So, if you are eating out, and I help my patients with this, looking at menus, like try and find the same foods that you would at home, like eat the same way. You know, a lot of times people say, well, I'm going to a special dinner, it's this Italian type of place, they'll send me the menu, and we try and do the best we can with trying to find some options that are as similar to how they would eat at home. Think about your next workout. You know, what does your body need? Did you do a lot of strength that day? Maybe you need a little more protein. So maybe you make sure to get chicken dish. Or maybe you don't love cooking fish in your apartment or in your home. So have fish when you're out, or shrimp. Or are you planning a long run the next day? That's a good meal to have a pasta. Skip the fries, have a salad. Let somebody else order the fries and you could share it with them. You can have fries. I just would try and minimize it because it's a lot of excess fat. Bring meals to work or practice so you avoid grabbing something unhealthy. Like pack your bag and put a couple foods in it. It doesn't have to be fancy stuff, but it's more like preventing you from being starving on the streets of New York City, and then there's too many options that are not ideal. And order chicken or fish, baked, broiled, or steamed, and we're really trying to stay away from fried foods. If you love fried foods, like order it when you're with lots of people so you could share it. So supplements, I think, is really good to kind of just address, which are safe and effective. That's really what I look for, safe and effective, which have studies to back it up, what's worth taking, because they're expensive and they can actually be really harmful. Supplements they bypass your gut and they kind of go right into your bloodstream and then to your liver. So it's hyper concentrated. So if you're taking a supplement, and like food is actually digested through your GI tract. So it kind of works as like a safety net where it kind of prevents anything from getting through, or it's like a barrier to prevent excess stuff from getting absorbed. So you don't have that if you're taking supplements because it's going directly into your bloodstream. So just be careful of what you're taking. If you need it, take it. If you find that there's something that's making you feel better, that I think it's fine. But I usually don't recommend them unless they're absolutely needed or there's a deficiency. So protein, I think like everyone I know takes protein supplements. Take it if you need it. I would rather you eat food, like have a yogurt instead of a scoop of protein powder, because the yogurt also has calcium and has other probiotics and other nutritional benefits.
Christine has a question.
Oh yeah,
Yes,
go ahead.
I have a question. I'm not speaking about supplements, but speaking about drugs, anti-inflammatory drugs such as Advil. If you are injured, if you want to reduce the pain, sometimes you need to take some Advil or other drugs. Is it possible, or do you think that is there any risk to take Advil, for example, during a long run or before a marathon or during a marathon, if it's authorized? I'm speaking about authorized drugs, of course.
Yeah, and it depends on what it is and why you're taking it. The problem with Advil is it masking a pain or something else, like a pre-injury? We want to kind of address that. And if you take Advil chronically, and you're dehydrated, it can affect your kidneys. So Advil chronically is not great. I don't know to what degree chronically, how they define that, but I would only take it if needed. I don't have a problem with it. And over-the-counter stuff, as from time to time, is totally fine, I think. And you can ask your doctor about safety, and you can also email me independently, and I can try and help you determine if it's harmful or not. But periodic Advil is fine.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, with food for sure, because it can be hard on your stomach.
Okay, thank you.
And then like other supplements like magnesium, people take that for energy production. I think that's fine because that also is lost in sweat. Iron and B12, vitamin D, those are all really, really important, especially if you're plant-based or vegan, or female athletes, runners especially, need extra iron.
Sarah has
And then Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, hi Amy. Thank you for doing this again. I always really enjoy these. But I just wanted to ask if you could just talk through collagen a bit more. I'm like very curious about that protein, and I've seen it on the shelves and everything. And what is the benefit of taking a protein with collagen in it?
That's a great question. So the collagen, it's protein collagen supplement like Vital Protein. That's the most common one. They've done a lot of marketing. So it helps restore the soft tissue. So like your ligaments and your tendons. That's kind of what it's helping you do. And there were studies that showed, they did like an MRI on someone's knee. I think they used football players, and they looked at their knees, and then they gave them collagen supplements for like a month. And then they did another MRI, and they felt that it made a difference. There is good research to support that. But then I saw an article on collagen, like having too much growth, where somebody was experiencing like growths on their face, or like, I think it was on their back. So I think if you feel like you need it, or if you have an injury, maybe that's a good time to take it, only for a short period of time. I wouldn't take anything chronically. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. I was just kind of wondering if it was something that you should just take in general, because I have seen it all over the shelves like this past year or two. I feel like it's like a hot item. You're right. And like the marketing and everything. So personally, I mean, I had a meniscus tear when I was 15, but that's a really long time ago. But I think like for what I'm taking, like I do take a protein powder. I put it in my shake every morning. Feel like that's enough. So
Yeah, and yeah, absolutely. It's the same thing. It's
Yeah,
protein,
okay.
20 grams of protein. And chicken, I think, is better than that supplement. So you also, with those supplements, the collagen or the vital protein supplements, you need to have vitamin C in it. Has to have vitamin C to work. If you need like 60 milligrams of vitamin C. Some of the supplements have it and some don't. So it's not going to work unless you have the vitamin C along with it. So you either take a separate supplement with vitamin C, or you find one, a package that has it. So Vital Protein sent us a ton of samples for my team, but it was weird. Like they sent me samples and they didn't have vitamin C. So then I had to tell all my athletes they had to take an extra supplement with it. I'm like, that seems really odd to me. And it should have it all in one. So look for vitamin C, 60 milligrams.
Anne has a question as well.
Hi, Amy. Thank you. So my question is there like a checklist of everything that we need to get a minimum of, like how many this of that and how many this of the other, so I can just kind of do like a little checklist, because it gets kind of overwhelming.
Totally. So are you talking about just foods like carbs
Just
and
like
protein?
each day I should get this amount of grams of carbs and that amount of grams of protein and this amount of.
Yeah, this is overwhelming for sure. I think the best way to go about it is you look down at your plate. So you dial in your before run, that's your carb. Then every other meal after that, you look at your plate and there should be something from the carbohydrate group, something from the protein, and then tons of veggies.
Okay.
And that's it. You don't have to measure. You don't have to count. Like if you eat a bagel with butter, there's no protein.
Right.
And there's no vegetable. If you eat spaghetti with red sauce, well, there's carbohydrate and a little bit of tomato, but there's no protein. So maybe you add a protein to it. Maybe you have some grilled chicken on the side.
Okay.
So I think that's the easiest way to do it.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
I have Z also has a question.
Sorry. So when you were talking about the grams, because again, I know that I don't eat enough protein. So what do you think about when they're recommending and I know that I think it's probably different for people who like weight train heavier, they need more, but like the whole thing about using how much you weigh and times, 2 point something or whatever kilograms per your body weight, whatever, to figure out how much protein you should get in a day. Because that's why I was telling you before, I didn't realize that what I was doing was harming me, because I was trying to incorporate protein throughout the day with yogurt and like protein shakes and obviously fish and other stuff. So I was just curious about that.
Yeah, so I would just say for protein, 20 to 30 grams a meal, no more than that. Like you don't need more. That's like 3 ounces of meat. You don't need more. You can have more, a little more, but your body doesn't need like 50 grams of protein at a meal. it can't use that. It's too much.
Okay, I was thinking more of in a day, like how much you should get, but that's good.
Oh,
Thank
in a
you.
day. So yeah, it's based
Yeah.
on weight. So like, let's see, the average person, let me just do a ballpark, probably around 70 to 100 grams of protein in a day. So again, that's like 30 a meal, around there, and then like 15 for snacks.
Akil has a question as well.
Hi. So one of the things I've been trying to do is cut back on red meat and try to eat a little bit more grilled chicken. But in general, I kind of want to get away from meat, and like I've been seeing a lot more, with the Beyond Meat and the Impossible Burgers and stuff like that. But it's plant based, but then for it to taste good, I know it has a lot of sodium and stuff like that. What do you think about like that transition? Where you're trying to get away from meat and trying to go plant based, and you're still looking for protein also.
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think it's, first thing I would ask is like, why you're going plant-based. Is it for health reasons? Is it for political reasons? I think those products are not great. I think they're fine, but like you said, they're like processed and all this other stuff is added in. I think you're probably better off having like a lean steak once in a while than eating those products. Or grilled chicken is probably better than those products. There's lots of other vegetarian ways to get, or plant-based ways to get protein, like tofu, but it requires a lot of preparation. I mean, it's work. Everyone touts a plant-based diet, but it is work. There's much more labor involved. I like edamame. I think that's a really great way to get in high quality protein. The grains, a lot of those have protein, like quinoa. Potato has 3-4 grams of protein. So protein's in a lot of foods. You don't have to really, go in with high amounts. If you do eggs, like egg whites are amazing. It's a high quality protein. Or if you're having dairy, a yogurt can have like 16 grams of protein in one yogurt. Also, soy milk is also a great source of protein for plant-based.
Gotcha. Perfect. Yeah. No, it's not political or any type of. It was just more like eating healthier. Yeah, just trying to be cleaner and stuff like that.
And if you miss a steak, have that once in a while. That's probably better than putting in tons of Beyond Burgers in your diet.
Gotcha. Perfect. Thank you.
Sure. So the other supplements, like I was saying, like iron, I think really important for athletes. A lot of females especially can have low iron. And that affects you because iron carries oxygen in your body. And if you're trying to run fast, you need all the oxygen you can get. You do not want to have a low iron. And if you've had a low iron, you would feel that. You'd feel tired all the time, irritable. Although a lot of us can feel that way all the time. You feel it on the last rep of a workout, like you're dizzy. You feel major dizziness. So I would say if you are plant-based or don't eat a lot of meat, and if you're female, get these checked, the iron, B12, vitamin D, periodically. Your internist can pull those levels. And if you have any additional questions, you can always ask me about it. Let's see. And then just in summary, focus on your pre-run foods and the timing to get the most energy and delay fatigue, and also prevents GI issues. Stress and recovery with healthy foods will equal improved performance. And then definitely practice race day fueling during your training runs. That is the time to practice. So I'm going to end this and figure out how to stop sharing. Okay.
Thank you so much. I think also Christine has a question.
Yeah, maybe a last question. First of all,
Yeah.
thank you very much and congratulations for what you have done with the New York Times. I have a question regarding the nutrition or where you put the cursor depending of your age. When I see these beautiful babies on the screens, I'm wondering what you should eat more or less when you are in your 40s, 50s, 100.
Excellent question, Christine. I'm going to include that on my next time I talk. So age differences. So as you get older, more protein. That's the bottom line. So maybe you would go like, on the lower end. If you're in your 30s, you could probably get away with like maybe up to like 80, 90 grams of protein a day. If you're a little older, maybe you want to get on the higher end, and it's weight dependent. Like it would depend on what your weight is. So I would say more protein would probably be the better way to go. So if I'm saying 20 to 30 grams a meal, make it 30.
Thank you.
You're welcome. That's a great question, because it's strength. It's like you lose strength as you age. So that's something you want to increase, and you need the protein to do that.
Thank you very much.
All right,
You're
Roxanne,
welcome.
that's a question.
Hi, thank you for everything. Super helpful. I just want to confirm a few things you said earlier. So I usually eat Cliff Bars before my track workouts and my long runs, but it sounds like it's useless for the track workouts. I usually do it like 20 minutes before. But for the long runs, maybe like I do at least an hour before. So I just want to confirm.
I think you're
And
fine. Yeah, go ahead.
oh, and the last part is I usually don't eat or drink before my morning runs because I had to take a pill where had to do it on an empty stomach. So my body's just kind of used to it, but I also sweat a lot. So I guess the solution to that is to just drink plenty of water when I come back home, or is it necessary
Let's do
to
the
do
first
that?
question. Let's do your Cliff Bar question. I would say, like, if you're fine with that at 30 minutes, then great. Like, everyone's different. I gave a talk for the Fordham track and field team, and it was so funny. Like, there's one guy in the audience who eats bacon and eggs before his workouts. I think he's a sprinter. And he's like, every day, bacon and eggs. And somehow he is totally fine. So your Cliff Bar, 30 minutes, you feel good, great. So that's not a problem. Perfect. It's easy. You're getting it in. Perfect. The other question you were asking was about, like, so it's, again, how long those runs are. If you're going in empty, you might want to bring a goo with you because you need the 30 minutes after your medication. So you'll stay fasted. And then if it's an over an hour run, see how you feel. If you're starting to kind of push through and it's becoming really a lot of work, then maybe you take a goo and see if that helps you for that last part. And I don't know, coach, you give them like push at the end, like a 3-mile push at the end of a run. Oh yeah. Okay. So you definitely want to do the goo, before the push comes. Okay. And allow your body to digest that and then get ready to crush that.
Well, one thing we do is, I guess at the beginning of training, we discourage them taking like goos and things like that to first force individuals to make sure that they're like at the beginning of the season, actually, not training, at the beginning of the season when the long runs are not too long. They're more like 90 minutes to an hour 45, not even hitting the 2-hour mark, maybe 14 miles. It also depends on the individual's pace. But we discourage them taking goos and things like that because I want them to eat food first and think of everything else as a supplement. Because if you're not eating well, then I don't think the gel itself is going to save you. You first have to have a good meal before you come into the run, etc. And then as the run becomes longer and longer, we encourage, well, now you have to have your supplements.
I think that's great. You have a plan and you're measuring it and you're changing it. So that's perfect. I think that sounds good. As long as, you have a structure to it, I think that sounds good. No problem.
Ali has a question for you, Alexandra Sarah.
Hi, Amy. I've been primarily using the Shalane Flanagan cookbooks as a guide for all of my meal preps, and I love it, but I'm just wondering if there are any other endurance or running cookbooks or websites that you use just for creative meal ideas.
That's a great question. I actually just use the New York Times and I just modify those recipes. I happen to think it's easy to search. I could put in vegetarian or I could put in pasta. I like I don't know, those work for me. I don't know any endurance ones, good endurance. I also like Love and Lemons. That's for plant-based. I think she has wonderful recipes and good salad dressings. So Love and Lemons is a good one, and Oh She Glows is also really good. The plant-based ones are great because they're always high carb. So it's not necessarily for an endurance athlete, but they're high carb. Sometimes I add chicken to it. So they're creative and they're really interesting. Love and Lemons and Oh She Glows. So I don't have specific endurance, and I do love the Shalane books too. Those are so good.
I just got her new one, and I highly recommend the banana chocolate muffins.
Amazing. Oh, I can't wait. I just made the superhero muffins this week. Those are so good.
Sarah has a question.
Yes, sorry, I know we're at time, but I was curious, and I'm kind of going to exclude the males here, but for females during your different cycles throughout the month, do you recommend eating more protein closer to your period, like backing off of certain things? I know it's probably a loaded question, but I'm just always kind of curious about that, if I should be adding more to my diet during, that week leading up or that week when you're on it.
All right, let me think for 1 second. So, okay, that's a good question. There's a lot of good data and a lot of information that's coming out about the differences between male and females. And I'm trying to think if there was anything, it was more about their endurance and their running mechanics, not about the PMS. I do know that performance is different for females in the first 2 weeks versus the last 2. So would you change your diet? I think the one thing I do know is calcium is really helpful in that PMS kind of the week before, because it helps mitigate like PMS symptoms. So calcium, if you're not getting enough, just get to the dose. Like, athletes should be at like 1,500 milligrams a day. So a yogurt's like 300. Okay. So if you're not getting that, then just get that dose, get to your max dose with some supplements, and then you're fine. And I would do that the week before and see if that helps you. Would you need more protein? No, you're going to have cravings of carbs, and, allow for that and not feel bad about it.
Thank you.
Rob Ledesma has a question.
Hi, Amy. Thank you again for doing this. You mentioned the salt patches before that measure your sweat rate. What company does that?
It's Gatorade. Do you want to see it? I had to grab it. Yeah. Do you want me to grab it? I could show it to you.
No, that's fine. I was Googling it. I was like, couldn't find
Gatorade sweat patch.
Okay, good. Okay.
Yeah, so I haven't done it yet. It's complicated. It looks really complicated. I watched a video. I'm like, okay. So it's not an easy product to use. I want to test it and then post a video on how to do this thing. And is it accurate? You have to download an app, and then the app reads it. I mean, it is not easy, and they're not cheap. So then I was going to ask Gatorade to send me a lot so I can give them to my athletes to try. So just hold off. If I can, if I can test it, I'm going to test it on my runners in the armory. And then maybe they'll send me some. So, I'm going to be happy to pass those along.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
All right.
Guys are great. I love all these questions. That's all. I was taking notes on them just to make sure I, hit everything. These are great.
I think the more we get into training, the more questions we have. So.
Good. And if you guys have more, you can always reach out to me. You guys have my contact through Coach. I'm always around. I'm running a lot too, so I'm with you guys. Whatever you're suffering through, I'm there too. So I feel you.
That's good. All right. Thank you so much, Amy.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Any last minute questions? All right. So let's thank Amy.
Thank you so much, Amy.
You're welcome, you guys.
Have a good weekend.
You're so welcome. Great.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great. Have a great rest of your weekend, guys.
Thank you.
You too.
Bye.
Stay warm.
Thanks, you too.
Thank you so much, Amy.